Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on the time zone you're all in. Welcome to the first KDI School Development Talk Series virtual event. My name is G.A. Park from the KDI School of Public Policy and Management, and I will serve as the virtual MC for today's webinar. Now, before we begin, please kindly note that today's webinar is currently being live streamed through KDI School's YouTube channel and is also being recorded for knowledge sharing purposes. Please also note that today's webinar will be uploaded through KDI School's K-Developedia website. For today's event, distinguished speakers from Rwanda and the World Bank will give insightful presentations regarding Rwanda's current status during COVID-19 on various sectors. Please kindly note that English-Korean simultaneous interpretation is also being provided for today's event at Zoom. Please set the language interpretation option according to your preference through the Zoom setting below. Also, keep your mic muted when you're not speaking, but if you have any questions and comments during the presentation, please leave them with your name and affiliation in the chat room, and we will cover them during the Q&A session after the presentation. Now, I would like to proceed the opening of the event by inviting our distinguished speakers to deliver their opening and welcoming remarks. First, Dr. Uk Son, Associate Dean of the Office of Development Research and International Cooperation, and Professor of KDI School of Public Policy and Management will deliver his opening remarks. Everyone, please welcome Professor Son. Professor Son, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jie. Her Excellency Yasmin Amni Swed, Ambassador of Rwanda to the Republic of Korea, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers, participants on Zoom and YouTube. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on your time zone. On behalf of the KDI School of Public Policy and Management, I'd like to welcome everyone to the first 2022 KDI School Development Talks webinar series. Thank you so much for your interest and participation to today's event. I believe most of participants are familiar with the KDI School, but for those joining us new today, I'd like to take this opportunity to briefly introduce KDI School and the mission of our webinar series. KDI School was founded as an affiliated educational institution of the KDI, the first government-led research institute in socioeconomic policy. Established in 1997, the KDI School has educated more than 5,000 alumni from 140 countries with the mission of fostering the next generation of global leaders. And a total of 26 Rwanda nationals have graduated and are attending KDI School. Along with our dedication to fostering global leaders, our mission is to share the Korea's development experience and public policy strategies to support partner countries to better identify policy alternatives and solutions to contribute to more fruitful development path. KDI School's Development Talks series is one of our efforts to share knowledge in light of KDI School's mission. The Development Talks series aims to support our goal and mission by hosting a webinar series on countries selected among Korea's 27 priority partner countries. This series is being hosted by KDI School in 2 consecutive years since last year, and the past development talks had informative and lively discussions focusing on 5 Korea's priority partner countries, including Colombia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and Egypt. We are here today to discuss Rwanda and its important economic and structural reforms towards impressive progress. Rwanda sustained the economic growth rate over the last decade and has achieved successful economic development and political stability by implementing active national development policies under the leadership of President Paul Kagame. The UN announced that Rwanda is one of a few countries that have almost achieved the Millennium Development Goals, and the World Bank also ranked Rwanda as one of the most developed countries in sub-Saharan Africa and for high quality of governance. The Korean government is actively carrying out development cooperation projects in Rwanda, mainly focusing on ICT, rural development, and education. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea has also established the Korea-Africa Foundation in 2018, hoping to promote partnership with the African countries in the political, economic, and cultural fields by strengthening a platform for exchanges and better understanding. And most recently, in March this year, Seoul Mayor Sehun-oh met Ambassador Yasmin Amni-Suet and stated Rwanda is a country with a promising future and abundant growth potential. And Rwanda's political leadership on reconciliation and integration has been impressive. It's very clear that Korea also needs to learn from these values. So this webinar would not have been possible without KDI School's global alumni network. I sincerely appreciate alumni's continued interest and support of the school through their time and participation. So in this regard, I'd like to convey special thanks to our distinguished speakers. First, Mr. Vincent Nkundimana, Program Officer at Science for African Foundation. Mr. Muniyamana Emmanuel, Social Policy and Economics Specialist at UNICEF. Mr. Emmanuel Kabanda, Analyst at Rwanda Development Board. And Ms. Jeannie Park, IT Officer at the World Bank, for your participation in today's webinar. Okay, I believe today's webinar provides learning opportunities for everyone through discussions on the current policy responses to COVID-19. I also look forward to live discussions and various suggestions regarding the direction of development cooperation with Rwanda. Again, I would like to thank Her Excellency Yasmin Amni-Suet, all of distinguished speakers, and online participants for your precious time. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the insightful message, Professor Son. Next, congratulatory remarks will be delivered by Ambassador Yasmin Amni-Suet, Ambassador of the Embassy of Rwanda in Korea. Your Excellency, thank you very much for agreeing to take your time to speak at today's webinar. Everyone, please welcome the Ambassador.
Mr. Workson, Associate Dean of the KDI School of Public Policy and Management, researchers, professionals, fellow Rwandans, and friends of Rwanda. It is a real pleasure to be here with you. I am very happy and honored to be following the Associate Dean today. And I'm very excited to participate to this development talk series. I had the opportunity to see what was done before, and I think it comes at a very timely moment, because we are in a very special time in terms of the chronology. COVID-19, in the case of Rwanda, has reduced for some time now. I believe my fellow Rwandans will explain more because they're on the ground. But I think it is also giving us hope to see that there is a little bit of stabilization for the several weeks. But it's also a very particular time because, as we know, there is also a war that has international consequences, and this will have an extra challenge on the recovery. So I very much look at listening to what you have to share at all the participants. I believe their insights will guide us and will enable us to have interesting thoughts and reflections as we go. I also would like to commend KDI that has, through these development talks, really foster a practice that you clearly have been doing, which is really sharing best practice. And it's not only when it's about one country that it interests the people from the country, but it's really interesting to all of us. And I've been keenly following up with what you've done and the talks with different people, especially also with fellow African countries, Egypt and others. So I'm looking forward to continue, after even this one, to continue to be one of the participants of the Development Talk series and to learn from all of you. Last but not least, I really would like to congratulate KDI not only on these talks, but also on the work that you've been doing. As Rwanda, you've trained several researchers, you have several graduates that came from your school, and you still have current students. And we are very much recognizant, and we can appreciate the contribution they give back at home. Even in personally, I've interacted with some of your alumni, and they're very brilliant and insightful, and it's a pleasure to work with them because of their, not only their capacities, but also they're very agile and forward thinking. So I thank you again. I believe the alumni that are here today are a perfect example of the cooperation we wish to continue to have with you, and we hope that now that things are a bit changing, we'll come at KDI School and visit you very soon. So I thank you again. I thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to listening to the presenters. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind message, Your Excellency, Ambassador Yasmin Amni Swett. Now I am pleased to invite the first presenter of today's event, Mr. Vincent Nkundimana. He is currently the Program Officer at Science for Africa Foundation, and he will speak on Rwanda's response to COVID-19. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Nkundimana. Mr. Nkundimana, it is great to have you here, and the floor is yours. Oh, Mr. Nkundimana, can you make it into the bigger screen, the full screen? Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. And it's really a privilege to be here with you today. And I always feel very excited to talk about my country, Rwanda. I hope you have a very successful session today. So today I'll talk about Rwanda's successful response to COVID-19. But before I talk about COVID-19, I just wanted us to have a little knowledge about Rwanda. So Rwanda is a country in East Africa, and we're bordered with Uganda in the north, Tanzania in the west, DRC in east, and Burundi in the south. We're actually close to 26,000 square kilometers, and we are 12.3 million people. We are led by His Excellency President Paul Kagame as our president. And actually, next year, Rwanda will be celebrating 60 years anniversary of the diplomatic relations between, of course, Rwanda and Korea. And we are very much grateful for that and for the support that the government of Korea has been providing Rwandan students, and I'm a very proud KDI alumni. So while most developed countries in terms of economic development and technology and resources were struggling to, to curb COVID-19, Rwanda registered some success stories in handling COVID-19, despite the constraint in terms of resources and technology. But the country has been really, really able to control COVID-19 very successfully, and it was praised worldwide because of those interventions. So now, today we're going to see what some of the success factors that led to the country to be praised in terms of handling COVID-19. When the COVID-19 broke in our country, one of the things that our leaders told us from day one was that we have to put politics aside, and that the pandemic was really, really a bad one, and we are in terrible moments. So one of the things they told us was that we have to make sure we put politics aside and focus on public health of the people first. We have to focus on saving the lives of the people. That was the government statement. And the other thing that really made the country successful was in terms of health system. Rwanda has one of the strongest health systems in the world. And our health system is built on principles of equity, trust, community participation, and our health system was also centered on patients. So in terms of trust, like Rwanda has the highest level of public trust, because Rwandan people trust the health system provided by the government. And this really made the job of the government very easy in convincing people to implement measures such as lockdowns, hand washing, vaccination, testing, wearing masks. So it was very easy for people to follow the government instructions because they trusted the health systems of the government. Also, there was a component of community participation, because when we were experiencing this pandemic, so there was the highest level of government participation, community participation. We actually have these at the grassroots level. We have community health workers who work as volunteers to help government implementing some of these measures. So they helped us a lot in educating people at grassroots level to comply with measures such as lockdown, social distancing, and it really worked. Actually, the country didn't have enough testing kits or ICU beds to take care of COVID-19 patients. But these health workers really helped in implementing what you call the Operation Save the Neighbor. So the Operation Save the Neighbor was a program whereby these grassroots health workers took care of COVID-19 patients in their homes. So they could monitor how these patients are doing, and then just in case there are critical signs that their health has, is deteriorating, they could just go and alert neighboring doctors. There's also leveraging on technology. We didn't have a high level technology, but we could leverage on technology that was available. Like for instance, we had robots that were introduced during COVID-19, and these robots were responsible for screening like between 50 to 150 people per minute. They could just identify people who are not wearing masks. They were stationed at the airport and some of the health facilities, so they could detect people who are not wearing masks and then instruct them to like wear masks. That was done by the robots. We also introduced drones. In these remote areas, we introduced drones, and then these drones were just sending message across to those people in remote areas to comply with COVID-19 measures, and this really worked very, very well. The other thing was about innovations in mass communications. We used social media a lot to tell people, to communicate to people about the government measures, the government instructions on how to handle this COVID-19. There's also an issue, another thing of financial support. The government really provided financial support to vulnerable people who could not afford it. Actually, the senior government officials forfeited their 1 month salary to help people who are in need of financial support during lockdowns. And we were able to collect close to $1 million US dollars to help those people. This was really a very good thing. There was also another success story in the way we vaccinated our people, testing for vaccination, because we went around the streets, doing random testing, mass testing, and this was done free of charge, because our government takes very good care of its people. So you can see our police using robots. Picture on the right side of my screen. So these were the robots that were used, to communicate to people. And you can also see people being, given food assistance. You can also see these drones, and also the government also deployed about 5,000 volunteers, to help people, show them how to wash their hands and everything. So we think this was really a great success. There are also some measures, to control the borders, such as truck driver tracking systems. This photo is about, mass testing on the streets. So far, we have been able to fully vaccinate 68% of the Rwandan people, and as you can see, 31% has received already booster vaccines. We're also planning to set up a vaccine manufacturing plant, and in November last year, His Excellency Jung-Moon Cha visited Rwanda. He's the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs. So they had some interaction with our Foreign Minister, and one of the things they discussed was, to partner on how to establish, to set up a vaccine manufacturing plant, and by mid-July, this plant should be able to, to operate. So in some, good leadership, good health systems were key drivers for Rwanda to become a successful story in managing COVID-19. And one of the things that we've learned is that it's not always about having high technology, high abundant resources, but it's about the government that is responsible, the government that takes very good care of its people, and we work together to find pandemics such as COVID-19. Thanks so much for following me, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you for the informative presentation, Mr. Nkundimana. And next, we will proceed straight to the second presentation, and I am pleased to invite the next speaker, Mr. Emmanuel Muniemana. Mr. Muniemana is Social Policy and Economic Specialist at the UNICEF, and today he will speak about socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 in Rwanda and policy perspectives towards resilience. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Muniemana, and the floor is yours. Mr. Muniemana? Mr. Muniemana, can you hear me? I think Mr. Muniemana's connection is lost now, so maybe can we continue with the third presenter, Ms. Jeannie Park? Ms. Jeannie Park, are you there?
Yeah, I can go
Okay.
earlier then.
Yeah, thank you. So we will continue with the third presentation. So we have Ms. Jeannie Park. She is an Innovation and Technology Officer at the World Bank, and she will give presentation about leveraging emerging technologies for development. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Jeannie Park, and the floor is yours.
Okay, can you see the slide?
No. Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see the slide now?
Yes.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to meet you. I'm Jeannie Park, the Innovation and Technology Officer at World Bank. I'm working at the World Bank Technology and Innovation Lab, where we serve as an exploration sandbox and technology advisory team around emerging tech to solve development challenges. As you may feel in your everyday life, we live in an age of dramatic technological advances. You see the graph here. There has been the device created associated with each technology revolution. Although it mostly concentrated in developed countries in the past, we now know that catching up and leveraging those technological advances can close the existing gaps. Many countries see potentials and opportunities to catch the new waves of emerging tech to develop and innovate the country. And I know that Rwanda does the same. Many of the international organizations acknowledge this importance as well and support the use of these technologies to accelerate the achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and to facilitate their alignment with the global values. I think the academia and industry is working together to explore how to use this technology wisely and effectively, also creating many kind of like a consortiums or working groups such as Data for Good and AI for Development. There are lots of different definitions on disruptive tech and types of technology people pick as disruptive tech. But theoretically, I think it is any innovation that dramatically changes the way the business and industry operates. AI, blockchain, IoT, AI, VR that you might heard of are examples of those. Those technologies have different characteristics and maturity level, as you see on the graph on the right side. Here, meaning each technologies require the variety of number of technological prerequisites while producing the value added. Therefore, it's very important to ensure where we are and how much are we ready to successfully adopt a new technology and fully develop to its potential. Rwanda has also been placing technology and innovation to boost the country's economic development and catching the waves. For example, they launched the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Rwanda, with World Economic Forum, and passed the legislation on protection of personal data and privacy, also developing a national AI policy agenda to advance innovation capacity and develop AI systems. Study I brought is the Rwanda government unmanned aerial vehicle that we say drones. The drone delivery system that enables the delivery of emergency blood packs, especially for this big country. Drones can fly to hospitals and along with the predetermined routes, allowing 2 distribution sites to cover nearly all of Rwanda. And I thought the AI-based chatbots for healthcare was a good one. The integration of the AI-powered triage tool into the service has been the next step in digitizing the national healthcare system. Basically, the tool is being used for nurses to work more efficiently and make better and quicker decisions for their patients. Therefore, the AI system helping them ask patients the right question, collect the information, and provides insights. The last one is another case is a supply chain solution powered by Hyperledger blockchain technology that is providing critical traceability to tantalum mining in Rwanda. I know the tantalum in Rwanda is an important resource, and blockchain was leveraged to prove that it was actually mined, transported, and processed under OECD sustainable way, and increase the transparency to ensure investment and stability, and actually to create the immutable record of custody to trace Rwanda from the mine to the manufacturer to the end user. I brought some of other cases that we've been working in my team. So the first one is the Evoke project, the blockchain-based service delivery model and education. So the World Bank Education Team and Innovation Lab, we pilot together the use of blockchain technology to facilitate transparent and trackable result-based financing to students to relevant skills to solve environment challenges. It's a game-based educational model that they can go and play while learning different methods and result-based financing by the blockchain. So transparency, improve efficiency, maximizing finance for development by crowding non-traditional funders are all the advantage that we thought the blockchain could provide for the system. Another case we recently done in Korea, an innovation hub, was the AI and NLP to improve circular economy project, where we work with the Korea urban team and Korea Innovation Lab. So there were a lack of urban land and public spaces, but there are a lot of number on citizen feedback and responses, but it was very time consuming, and we need a lot of people to manually go through this feedbacks. So we collected all the reviews in Semarang, Indonesia with GIS and conducted machine learning and NLP algorithms, which could provide the insights and classify sentiments, action items, and so. We thought this could bring the residents of former sectors, private sector, local governments together to collaborate on development of areas and improve circular economy. This is another case that I brought, similar to the Rwanda one, the last mile of the pharmaceutical supply chain. It's a challenge in many countries due to issues with coordination and the management of veterinary orders. the World Bank Health Team and Innovation Lab partnered this pilot in Cote d'Ivoire to explore how blockchain could help track pharmaceutical inventory from a country's point of entry until administered to the patient, and how blockchain track the administration of the medicine so that there's no spoiled medicines on there. I think this is the last one that we have. This is a big data and GIS for building resilience. So there was a lot of need for public-private sector entities, people, and living in disaster-prone areas in Philippines. There are lots of natural disaster. So with these all informations, we take action on risk mitigation and decision-making. So we designed an intuitive risk model with big data, GIS, and to help them evaluate and mitigate any possible risk from the natural disaster. Korea is also working actively leveraging emerging tech and leading many international indexes. And I think the World Bank as well launched the EAP Innovation Hub in Korea office to learn and share knowledge. I think this session and Rwanda and Korea partnership could improve the country development as well. Emerging technology can be an accelerator to the development, and COVID-19 actually has highlighted the urgent need to develop digital capacities that can build more resilient system for a healthier society. There are some considerations that we could think about when adopting the emerging technology. For example, improving the economy's fundamentals through investment in human capital and governance will be very critical. I believe that Africa's entrepreneurial young generations are well placed to harness the fourth industrial revolution to create equitable opportunities for all. And probably we can invest in more on the human capital. Policy and regulatory frameworks, probably the most important and needs to be set and innovate. Agility to respond to technological advancements would be important. Cooperation between public and private sector entities can enhance technology adoption, facilitate further development. And the last point that I want to emphasize is focusing not on the technology itself, but focusing on the problem to be solved is very, very important in the development context when adopting new technology. So consideration on innovative business model, system-wide approach, digital ecosystem maturity, where we are, how are we going, and where we want to go. To think about this kind of different aspects would be very, very important for Rwanda. And I look forward to see future generations working on this fourth revolution in emerging tech, and forward to the future advancements on Rwanda technology. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Jeannie Park, for the very informative presentation. And next, we will proceed with Mr. Emmanuel Kabanda, and he is an analyst at the Rwanda Development Board, and he will give presentation about opportunities for bilateral collaboration between Rwanda and Korea. So everyone, please welcome Mr. Emmanuel Kabanda, and the floor is yours.
Hello. Professor Ukson, Associate Professor, Associate Dean, Korea Development Institute, School of Public Policy and Management. Your Excellency, Ambassador Yasmin Amri-Swed, distinguished members of the faculty,
Mr. Kabanda, would you please be able to share your slide? Yes, can you
I'm
make
trying
it
to do
into
that.
the full screen? Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Fellow members of KDI School alumni, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Kigali. This year marks 10 years since I left KDI, and I have fond memories of the place and the school, the community, and I'm honored to be back connecting to KDI School. The presentation will be as follows. I'll talk about Rwanda today. I'll talk about Rwanda's post-COVID-19 recovery. I'll talk about existing relations between the Republic of Korea and Rwanda, and I'll talk about opportunities for bilateral cooperation between Rwanda and Korea. Many people know about Rwanda through the movie Hotel Rwanda, but the movie, I should say, I've never watched the whole of it. And I know it was acted in South Africa. The people you saw in the movie were South Africans, and many of the things do not represent what we are. We are honest, decent, peace-loving, friendly people, welcoming people, warm, loving people. And I wanted to mention that for now, as of today, Rwanda has a population of 12 million. We have a GDP of 33 billion, if you consider it as the power purchasing power parity. And if it's nominal, it's $11 billion. Our GDP per capita, if you use PPP, will be $2,600 or 873 if you use the nominal. Sorry. Credit ratings, Rwanda, we are rated negative, B negative by Fitch, and B stable by S&P, Standard & Poor. And economic growth, we are the second, until the onset of COVID, we are the second fastest growing economy. We are the second country in Africa in ease of doing business after Mauritius. We are ranked third in the World Economic Forum in efficiency of government spending for the year 2017-2018. We are the first country in terms of transparency in Africa. We are second in MICE meaning meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. We are competing with Casablanca in Morocco and Cape Town in South Africa. We are the 5th safest country to walk at night. We have the most women in parliament in terms of gender balance. And we have 61% of our parliament is made of women, and 50% of our cabinet is made of women in terms, I'm talking about gender. We are the first country in East Africa in terms of network readiness. We have fiber optic, which was done in partnership with the Korea Telecom, covering 7,000 kilometers. And we have the lowest GDP ratio, rather lowest GDP to GDP, debt to GDP ratio in the region. And we have stable credit ratings. Rwanda is connected in terms of, we are landlocked, so to speak, but we are members of the East African community. So East African community used to cover countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, and Burundi. But now DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, has joined us. We are no longer landlocked. And using Rwanda Air, we are covering different, we reach different destinations. If you look at, for example, this map, before the COVID onset, we are supposed to fly to New York, Beijing, and Guangzhou. We already fly to Mumbai, we London, different places. So we are connected in that way. About Rwanda's post-COVID-19 recovery, in the year 2021, Rwanda's economy recovered, posting a 10.9 GDP growth. And we registered a total of, we registered a total of whereas we registered $3.7 billion in investments in 2021. This is compared to the previous year of $1.3 billion in investments. Rwanda government and its agencies provides flexible inbuilt incentives to ensure that investors do get the best of what they can. And we not only welcome investors, we work with investors to make sure that they succeed. This is part of Kigali, for those who may not have an idea of what Kigali looks like. Now, there are existing areas of cooperation between Rwanda and South Korea. When I say South Korea, it's for ease of distinction. I mean the Republic of Korea. We have diplomatic relations based at ambassadorial level. There are different levels. You could have a consul, we could have a chargé d'affaires, but the fact that we have a full diplomatic mission to Seoul and a mission to Kigali means a lot. When I went to Korea in 2011, we did not have a mission here. And I had to send my passport by courier to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. I received it at 8 in the morning, and my flight was scheduled at 9 in the morning. So it was convenient. It wasn't easy, but now we have diplomatic relations based at ambassadorial level. And number two, we have support from COICA. COICA has been in Rwanda for some time. It has been supportive, as Professor Wook mentioned. COICA has been instrumental in different areas of Rwanda's development, whether in agriculture, irrigation, whether in investment, whether in different areas. We have partnerships at company level. We have a partnership with KT Telecom, which has been providing 4G internet connectivity. We have different companies, but also we have volunteers and advisors under COICA, but also we have private investments. And again, we have institutions, rather NGOs, good neighbors. Yes, NGOs, we have good neighbors, we have Better World. These NGOs from Korea work in different parts of Rwanda, offering different development and social services according to their choice. This is part of Kigali, but I wanted to talk about the size of the market. People look at Rwanda as a small country, but we are not small. We are part of the bigger East African community, which now stretches from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. And we have a population of over 200 million people. Kigali, as like I mentioned, is one of the safest cities, and you can do whatever you can anytime of. We don't have muggings, we don't have robberies, we don't have carjackings. We are one of the safest countries that you can talk about. As I mentioned, in Africa, we are ranked second in terms of ease of doing business. As you can see, only Mauritius is ahead of us, but we are almost catching up. They are ahead of us by 2 points. So we should be able to cover the mileage. As I said, Rwanda is open to business. Rwanda is welcoming to, this is part of what is called Tour di Rwanda. It is an annual race which takes place here in Rwanda. What opportunities are there for bilateral cooperation and collaboration between the republics of Rwanda and Korea? Moving fast to make sure I'm within time. The first thing would be to sign a bilateral investment protection agreement. When President Bush came here, he signed one to make sure that American investments that come to Rwanda are safe, but also Rwandans who may have investments in the US their investments are safe. Yeah, I remember, I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, when he was here, he signed one. And the President of China, Xi Jinping, when he was here, also signed, I'm sure I need to consult, but he signed among those agreements, maybe one for investment protection, but the King of Morocco, when he was here, signed one. So many countries have signed protection agreements to make sure the investments emanating from their countries, when they come to Rwanda, are safe. Number two, we could encourage Ukrainian companies to invest in Rwanda, and the investment will not be in Rwanda alone. It will be for the East African community. What I mean by that is, in 2011, I went to a place called Yongsan in Seoul, and by then there was that transition from LCD to LED screen display, screen technology. And I was interested in LED. I met a company, I mean, a vendor. He was selling this company, which I said, he told me this screen does well. It is LED, but it had no known brand. So I said, I would prefer Samsung or LG. He said, don't worry, I can put this for you. I knew it was illegal, and I told him it is illegal, but you can see they are beautiful, amazing technological advanced companies in Korea, which are struggling. If they were here, for example, you'd have this big market. You can have all the incentives that are provided by the government here. You can make sure you are you prosper in this wider market of East African community. I know I need to increase speed here, but there is opportunity in bilateral cooperation between academia and research and development. I'll talk about this later. Korean institutions of higher learning and colleges, universities could set base here and serve the bigger, wider region, not only to expand on their scope, but also have a larger catch area. Also, I'm looking at encouraging Korean companies to invest on the Rwanda Exchange and Rwanda Finance Limited. Rwanda government has put in place infrastructure, the ecosystem, to make sure that companies that would want to move capital here do have the infrastructure, the ecosystem, and the rules and laws to make sure that people, where they have higher capital, where they have capital in excess, can have it not only invested here, but grown. Here we don't keep your money, we grow it to make sure that it increases. By that I mean, we have the Rwanda Stock Exchange, you have the Rwanda Finance Limited, which is leveraging on different parameters to increase capital. I know there are places where interest rates are as low as 5. Here, if you could have it at 8, 10, that would be, you would be in business. I'm looking at encouraging companies, partnerships to create markets and synergies. The East African community is becoming bigger. Like I mentioned, we have over 200 million people, a market of 200, and we not only have the resources, raw materials, we have the market, and Rwanda offers the best environment for companies to set base here. Like I said, at RDB, Rwanda Development Board, we not only encourage investors, we work with the investors to make sure they succeed, because when they succeed, we succeed as a nation. Or I would suggest that Rwanda Korean companies use Rwanda as proof of concept. Miss Jinhee mentioned a company that uses drones, and that is a company called Zipline. Zipline is a company that young people from California came to Rwanda. They had an idea, they had a concept, but they had not developed it to implementation. They came to Rwanda, they partnered with the government, they started Zipline, and it has been a success. It has become $1 billion company. Ampersand is an American company. It is, they are developing and using their concept to use motorcycles which use batteries. Here in Kigali, it is much easier to use motorcycles, taxis, which have been using fossil fuel. But now the government is encouraging these companies that can use renewable energy, and Ampassand is using more motorcycles that use rechargeable batteries. Like I said, there is a company here called Yego. Yego company is originally from Singapore. They are using a technology which they use, which they attach to motorcycles, and it can meter, it can bill the user, but also in terms of tracing, in terms of security, in terms of revenue collection. This has been very useful. So another way it would be to explore ways to import Rwandan produce. We produce organic agricultural products, which should be very useful. Coffee, in terms of tea. And the second, possibly the next opportunity that could be explored would be to visit Rwanda. Visit Rwanda is a program by government of Rwanda to not only welcome, like I said, we are welcoming people. We have a culture that is, we have not developed to our potential, to its full potential, and we would be welcoming tourists who would be willing to visit our country. Like I said, this is Kigali Innovation City, and this is what it should be, and it is next to the Kigali Socioeconomic Zone. You have universities that have set up company, rather have set up base here, international universities that would want to leverage and connect the academia to the industry. Here you have Carnegie Mellon International, Carnegie Mellon University in Africa. You have African Leadership University. You have the Oklahoma Christian University. You have different universities setting up base here. And as I was saying, you could have some of those renowned Korean universities setting base here and leveraging the existing environment, not only in terms of security, not in terms of openness. We have, like I said, we have an open visa. You can get a visa at the airport here, and that would be wonderful. So as I mentioned, it is an effort that the government of Rwanda promotes ICT, including innovation. And as I said, Africa Institute of Medical Sciences, which is based here in Kigali, does offer a world-class master's in machine intelligence in Africa. And we are looking into artificial intelligence and different areas of advancing, not only in IT, but emerging technologies.
I'm sorry
Briefly,
to interrupt, Mr. Kabanda. For timekeeping purposes, would you be able to finish within 1 to 2 minutes, please?
Thank you. I was closing. As I was saying, these are companies, different companies that have set up base in Kigali, and more are coming. We hope to and look forward to welcoming more Korean companies. Thank you all. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you for the informative presentation, Mr. Kabanda. And last but not least, we have Mr. Munyamana back. Are you there, Mr. Munyamana?
Yes, I'm here. I hope you hear me.
Okay. Yes, I'm pleased to invite our last speaker, Mr. Emmanuel Munyamana. Mr. Munyamana is social policy and economics specialist at the UNICEF. And today he will speak about socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 in Rwanda and policy perspectives towards resilience. Everyone, please welcome our last speaker, Mr. Munyamana. The floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator. I'm very sorry for the disconnection for some reason which I don't know. And I'm very, again, pleased to be here present. Honorable Ambassador of the Republic of Rwanda to South Korea and Honorable Associate Dean for KDI School. As the moderator said, I'm Emmanuel Mnyema from UNICEF Rwanda. I'm a social policy and economic specialist. I was requested and I'm humbly accepted to present to you about the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 in Rwanda and perspectives toward resilience. This is a very interesting topic, but not easy to navigate through. I will try to share with you what I think probably will be helping us toward the resilience. I'm mindful of the fact that I'm presenting after the other good distinguished presenters who talked about technology, who talked about the investment opportunities and partnership. But allow me to take you back to this COVID-19 trajectory and also looking into how it impacted us and probably jointly forged the way forward. I will be looking into four main pillars. One is the cases of COVID. In figures, my presenters, the predecessors have talked about it. And the economic effects, I zoom into the social effects, and then probably most important aspect is how do we successfully recover inclusively and resiliently. The previous presenters showed you how the vaccination rate has increased, but before that, you see this figure showing you how from March 2020 we have received the first case. And when you look at the trajectory by month from 2020 up to July 2021, that's the cutoff I took from the data. I didn't want to go further. You see that the government of Rwanda tried to keep the cases of COVID at a very manageable level to avoid the crowding out of the health services. This was done, of course, through a number of interventions that Vincent presented, and to also eliminate the health toll in terms of death. However, somewhere in June 2021 and July 2021, of course, onward, there has been a spike because of this COVID-19 variants, the Delta variant. And then this, of course, came with the social and economic effects ranging from this lockdown of businesses and also a slowdown of economic activities. However, with the discovery of vaccine, you see that the government of Rwanda has deployed massively the vaccination process up to, I think Vincent talked about 83 who received the first dose by end of December 2021. And 15% of the population received the second dose. The data were showing like the third dose was received by 2.1%, but I think now the number increased. So in terms of economic toll, as you could see, we've been having very resilient economy for the past 2 decades, averaging at 7.5% growth, GDP growth rate, with the 2019, we have like, if I can recall, the growth rate was about 9.4. This was very high, and then the previous was 8.6. But you see how the economy contracted to 3.4 in 2020. Here, just to recall that the prospects in terms of economic projection, we were anticipating in 2020 a growth of 10.6, but all of a sudden they drop. However, there is positive optimism because in 2021 the growth was 10.9%, and again this year it will be around 5.5%. Just also emphasize that Honorable Ambassador talked about this uncertainty around global economies. If the wars in Russia, in Ukraine, the growth, are showing like negative uncertainty, but still our economy will be resilient. Also, inflation increased because of COVID, and it was about 7.7%. So I would like to mention to you that with those effects, the most hardest hit sector was service, because as you could see, they registered a negative contraction of 5.5. But it was, again, if I could say the prospect aspects, you see that the growth will be in 2021, 11.9% around services, but the industry was showing really a high rebound of 13.4, and there is an optimism, further optimism in 2022. Just to say that the agriculture was resilient, which is interesting, but not that much. However, I also have to mention about the exports. Kabanda was mentioning about the opportunities for export and import. But as you could see, the imports, even if they suffered a lot, and export both suffered by a contraction of 11% and 14% around exports. But with the opening of the economy in 2021, they recorded a very rapid increase. You can see the imports increased by 28.5%, and export increased by 28.2%, which is good, and a signal of the early vaccination, massive vaccination, and also the opening of the economy in time, which we thank the government of Rwanda. Just to mention that we export mainly coffee and tea and minerals. These are traditional, but now the government is putting much effort to also increase to diversify the export base through re-export, horticulture, innovations, among others. In terms of social, we are seeing still the scars of the COVID-19, because the unemployment level is far high to the pre-pandemic. But we anticipate that if the economy recovers faster, this gap of the unemployment will be reducing. Now, when you compare the Q1 of 2020, which was pre-COVID, and the Q4 of 2021, you see that unemployment is around 13.1 and 14%, while now it is 27.3 and 23.8. You compare males and females. So the key message here is that females are suffering, or women are suffering a lot in terms of unemployment, because they are mainly concentrated in the subsectors, hotels, and other tourism services, which are more, they suffered a lot, they were hard hit, and the economy will be recovering fast, probably to become to the pre-pandemic level. Another point here is the previous speaker has talked about is we have seen the really gradual decline of poverty levels from 56.7%, these are national poverty levels, to 38% in 2016-17. These are the latest data, and both poverty, relative poverty, and extreme poverty reduced massively. However, the reports we have show that the poverty level may have increased by 5.1% when you use the simulation from the World Bank in the reports of 2021. Similar goes to education. We were aware that like last year, 2020 was really a year of loss, especially in terms of learning, and we estimate that the effects will be really very much and in long run, which will affect again the productivity. However, I trust that there is a way that that gap will be minimized through innovations and other things. I would like to say that pandemic has also increased the pressure on government finances because of when you see the public debt to GDP. We were resilient for since 2017, but in 2020, because of this rapid investment to sustain the health sector, vaccination, social protection interventions, the fiscal space was under pressure. And you can see the projections we have now show that We are going a bit higher to regional average and to the sub-Saharan African average. In 2022, the IMF estimated that the debt to GDP ratio, the public debt to GDP ratio will be 78.2. But we are not much worried because this was driven by raw growth projections, and with the current review of the financial data, there is optimism that this will be really catered for in Rwanda. So we have what we call, like, in terms of debt distress level, our level is moderate risk, but we've limited the capacity to absorb again the future shocks, which means that there is much need for more investment to like take back the growth to its normal trajectory. The last slide here, which I'm happy to share with you, is how can we then ensure that there is this resilient recovery. I set out 5 points. One is to ensure that the financial sector, the bank, the microfinances, the SACCOs, these are the savings and the cooperatives, I'm not sure if we have them in South Korea. They have to continue offering affordable services to strengthen SMEs for employment creation and growth. So this will reduce the social and economic impact and propel the growth. Also, there's a need to continue mobilizing public and international private sector resources through blended financing and innovative finance to invest in growth, what I call growth enhancing and poor sectors. The third point is about to continue, I think Kabanda talked about it, accelerating trade reforms to increase the exports through diversification. The fourth point is about macroeconomic stability. This is very key because without macroeconomic stability, all those gains around fiscal space, around inflation, it will be hard to ensure the growth. And also gradual fiscal consolidation measures have to be implemented. But if they are not gradual, they can disrupt the social gains. The last point, but not least, is continuing investing in the health system for stronger future pandemic preparedness and responses. This is very critical because no one wish, but there is a potential that this type of pandemic may continue to be recurrent in the future, not maybe in the short term, but longer term future. Therefore, the public-private investments in health sector is very critical. So I thank you for this opportunity, distinguished speakers, participants from different corners, Ambassador and the President. We are very glad that you have given us this opportunity to share with you this perspective, and look forward to receiving any comment and question. Back to you, moderator. Thank you.
Thank you for the informative presentation, Mr. Munyamana. And I would like to thank the 4 speakers again for their insightful presentation. They were very beneficial for all of us joining today through spreading knowledge and stimulating new ideas. And now I would like to open the floor for discussion. The questions both from Zoom and YouTube will be discussed. And to ask a question, please use raise hand icon in the Zoom or use the chat room. And please state your name and affiliation along with your question. So until now, we have collected 2 questions through Zoom chat during the sessions. And the first question goes to Ms. Jeannie Park from Ms. Lisette Istindi. And her question was, do you have any recommendations on how to get the population ready to embrace new technology, especially people living in rural areas? Ms. Jeannie Park, would you be able to answer this question?
Yeah, sure. I think this is a very good question. I think the UN and other international organizations are thinking the same questions together. I think that without a forward-looking approach, rural areas will face challenges taking advantage of this technology, and this might lead to the urban-rural income disparity as well. So to ensure the rural communities to join and fully seize the benefits of this digital age and trigger innovation, there are lots of components that governments need to ensure and strengthen a number of enabling factors. I think the one of the most important one is developing forward-looking policies and regulations with greater involvement of rural communities. So the policy frameworks that reflects the need of a wider country-wide digital networks, the agile processes, how the whole country can prepare in rapid changes in the future. Also, the education would be a big part, upskilling the labor forces, preparing skills for the future. Educational system, maybe investing more to the infrastructure, education infrastructure or the system in the rural areas might help. The last one I would think about would be not only the top-down approaches, maybe their government can support the bottom-up models in rural regions to finance and deploy, for example, the high-speed networks or strong infrastructure that could be of help.
Thank you for the answer, Ms. Jeannie Park. And we have our next question to Mr. Kabanda from Mr. Prudence Chapajong. And he said he wants to know if there are any prospects of cooperation between Rwanda and Korea in terms of guaranteeing sources of innovative financing for a more fruitful cooperation between the two countries.
Hello. Yes, thank you for the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Rwanda has a very good legal framework for investors. We protect investors and their investments, but also if there is a need for more specialized area focused kind of investment protection, the government of Rwanda is open for discussion, and where there is no framework in place, we'll make sure it is in place, because the government of Rwanda is keen on protection of investment, including copyright protection and intellectual property protection. So what is not there will be put in place to ensure that investors and their investments are successful. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Kabanda. And we have the third question to Mr. Nkundimana. So from Mr. Kevin Ochin. So he asked, how has the COVID-19 affected youth initiatives, which is crucial sustainable youth engagement and productivity of the economy? Mr. Vincent Nkundimana, would you be able to answer?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Yes, it's true. COVID-19 highly affected the youth because they are very key in the productivity of the country. But the Rwandan youth also saw COVID-19 as an opportunity because when like lockdowns were introduced in Rwanda, youth took that opportunity to innovate new solutions for providing solutions to the challenges that the society was facing. For instance, we could see a youth inventing new companies for food delivery. They build a website, you go online, you deliver food, and you don't have to worry during the lockdown about the food during the lockdown. We also saw some youth, seizing that opportunity, to pursue their education, like they're doing their education online. They're applying for scholarships, to do online classes. Also, the majority of the masks were produced by the young people because they didn't have anything to do, and they saw there's a demand for masks, so they set up some companies for producing those masks. So it was a challenge, yes, but our youth saw it as an opportunity, to provide solutions during that very specific time. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Nkundimana. And we have another question goes to Mr. Munimana from Mr. Sanguhan. He had two questions, but for timekeeping purposes, we will have to share one question from Mr. Han. So he asked, what kind of efforts the Rwanda government has to protect the investigation of a foreigner? And is there some administrative system for investors to be protected when they have troubles in their businesses? Mr. Munimana, would you be able to answer?
Thank you very much. I think, thanks for that question, but probably Emmanuel Kabanda would be the best place to respond to that. But probably let me say, in my view, and in my experience, what I have seen that the government has done to protect the investors. We established, the government has established first the Economic Recovery Fund and Economic Recovery Plan. So the two responses were very crucial to support, be it businesses, SMEs, big hotels, and other corporations. And the Economic Recovery Plan has set out a medium-term approach to respond to the challenges arising from COVID. But also, the government has been really following up on a regular basis through the monitoring system in place to make sure that anyone confronting challenges arising from COVID, arising from the recovery allocated for. And we are optimistic that even in the future, because the government has now committed to continue replenishing the fund to make sure that anyone in need of additional financing can access those funds, such that there is no harm caused from COVID. But I will again probably transfer the responsibility to Kabanda, who is more in investment, to add on what I said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Munimana, for the answer. And next, we have two participants raise their hands. So for timekeeping purposes, we will be sharing their questions. So Mr. Jerry, can you unmute your mic and share your question? Mr. Jerry, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so can you ask your question, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is very interesting. I'm Jerry Nyepan from Liberia. I'm an alumnus of the KDI school. It's a wonderful presentation. But I'm interested in two things. You know, Rwanda is being recorded for the two things. There are two opinions out there concerning your progress in terms of technology in Africa, because I mean, the World Bank 2021 report shows that Ghana and Rwanda are making progress in terms of technology. But I want to know, because other view hold that the issue of citizen participation, because it's very key in democracy. Because people say, oh yes, sometimes there are some form of dictatorship in Rwanda. So how participative or which participatory approach has been taken by Rwanda to include the citizen, because it's a new approach to making public decisions that affect the lives of the citizens. So I want to know, which approach did you take, you know, in the fight of COVID-19 and all of the governance progress, you know, that you've given?
Presenters, would you be able to answer Mr. Jerry's question?
So I think I'll go first. Yes, thanks, Jerry, for the question. So my take on this is that, you know, Rwanda is a country that went through genocide in 1994, and during that time, we needed some hard power, to put things in order and to make sure that the country is safe and secure. But over the years, the country has moved from hard power to soft power. So, for instance, you could see some political interventions that aimed at decentralizing the power, and currently how the country operates is like the power is decentralized. Like major decisions are made at the lowest level, at the lowest level of government, like sector level, village levels. That's where decisions are made, and then these decisions are escalated to inform policy. So in terms of citizens' participation, that's how we are organized. I understand, people talk about, dictatorship, but the experience on the ground is that people are really motivated to participate in whatever policy and practice that is happening in Rwanda, and the facts themselves, show. I mean, you can't say the country is under the dictatorship and then we have been able to register all the successes, that successful stories that that you guys hear about us. Yeah, so I think there are some misconceptions about our country, and so we focus on actions rather than misconceptions that people talk about us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nkundimana, for sharing your thoughts. And lastly,
to a follow-up. Hello.
Lastly, we will have Mr. Eric. Mr. Eric, would you be able to unmute and share your last question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam MC. I'm Ngange Eric Saga from Cameroon. I'm an ongoing applicant for the MPP program at KDI School. So the topic is very interesting. I thought wise to be part of it. My question is under the new asylum partnership arrangement between Rwanda and Britain that took effect on the 1st of January 2022. This partnership arrangement has to do with all those arriving in Britain illegally will be sent to Rwanda for their processing of their refugee status to be ascertained. If ascertained, they will be resettled in Rwanda. So my question is, how strategic is this arrangement for the development of Rwanda, especially going to the fact that it's a 120 million pounds agreement arrangement? So how is it? Is it economically, or is it a humanitarian aspect or political? Thank you. The question is thrown to whoever wants to answer.
So, is there anyone who wants to comment on Mr. Eric's thoughts?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Kabanda?
I just couldn't understand the question. If someone could rephrase it, please, if someone understood the question, or if the gentleman could rephrase the question.
How strategic is the asylum partnership arrangement between Britain and Rwanda? How strategic is it for the development of Rwanda?
I'm sorry, I can't get to hear. What is strategic, please?
Maybe I can come in, Emmanuel. I got it. I hope Honorable Ambassador is here present, still with us. The question of the colleague from Cameroon was about this, the partnership between the government of Rwanda and the UK government about the asylum seekers and this recent agreement they signed. What I understood is that this is, I think, primarily is more of humanitarian other than economic gains from each country. But Honorable Ambassador
I think Mr. Munimana.
Thank you. Can I go for the question?
Yes, please. But can
Okay.
you make it
Thank
really
you.
short?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Rwanda has been known for humanitarian assistance. We are one of the major contributors to peacekeeping the world over. I think we are number 3 or 4 in terms of contributing troops for peacekeeping. And when there were challenges in Libya, the government of Rwanda offered to bring those immigrants who were stranded in Libya, in Tripoli, in Benghazi, in all these places in Libya, and offered to transport them to Rwanda for hosting. Because these people are facing challenges, the government of Rwanda offered an olive leaf to these people and said, you can find home in Rwanda. These people were transported, they found home in Rwanda. Some of them were, they had their applications processed. And in this case, again, there are people who are suffering. There are people who are at risk because they are being transported by criminal gangs, taking them from Africa, promising them heaven, and they are stranded. They are dying in the Mediterranean Sea. They are dying in the channel between UK and France. And the government of Rwanda has come out to say, we can host you, we can have you find peace here. And there is money or not, we are offering home, we are helping these people find place where they can have their applications processed. So the challenge is not money. We have done it before in Libya. We have done it before. We are hosting the country, refugees from Afghanistan. We are hosting refugees from Somalia. We are hosting refugees from different places of the world. And all we are doing is not about the economic benefit of it, but we are offering we are hosting, giving them a refuge where they can find place to have peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabanda, for sharing your last answer. And now I would like to wrap up the Q&A session here. Thank you everyone for actively sharing your question and thoughts. And thank you for presenters also for sharing your answers. It made the session really fruitful. And before we wrap up our session today, we will have Ambassador Yasmin Misuet again for the short closing remarks. So Ambassador, would you be able to turn on your camera and please share your words?
Thank you very much. I would like to really thank all the presenters. It was very holistic and very interesting. I also thank the participants who asked the questions that I'm able to maybe double click on some aspect of the conversation. I would like just to answer the question before of our if I believe it's Mr. Eric, if I'm not mistaken. Just to let you know, like my colleague said before, this is not a trade or development strategy activity. As you know, we've been in Rwanda, we've known, many of us have known the life of a refugee, so it's something we're sensitive about. This is not, I saw there was another question in the box. This is not going to hurt the native. We've been through this at personal level for many of Rwandans. This is just for us to contribute to a problem that we know at individual level and at government level. So about the money, this is not something you make benefit out of it. This is just money to facilitate infrastructure and things like that. It's not a deal for business. I want to make it very clear. And I want to make it very clear for the two questions because I think these are my African brothers. This is not what we are doing. It's not who we are and it's not who we are as African. As simple as that. And then for the conversation, I think 3 points really stood out for me. One is the learning curve of we've had through COVID-19. I think it was very well explained by Mundimana, who explained the different strategy that was put to tackle the health crisis. I think it was nice to actually recap as we are going out of the crisis, hopefully recovering. The second point were also very interesting from Mrs. Park's presentation. I think I totally agree on the key role the technology conversation should have in our exchange between countries, Korea and Rwanda. I think the examples you've shown from Rwanda, but also the example from Korea, show that as Korea is embarking in the Korea New Green Deal, the smart component and the green component are really platforms that we could leverage as countries. I believe as an embassy, we have also the same plan, is to foster it, and we are very much open to learn more from the World Bank and from you in particular. And last but not least, I think the socioeconomic point is important. It is true the impact is there, it's being felt, but like you say, the economy can be resilient if we take the right approach. And I believe that Korea has a very blossoming SME, I would say SME community, if the word is correct. And I think part of the SMEs have the agility and the flexibility to be able to bring solution and to invest in Rwanda. I think that there is a top tier of SME that are quite considerable in economic power, that can have solutions that are relevant, that can be adjusted to the context, and that can be a key point to accelerate the development as we enter the recovery mode. And I still agree with you that this can be a big piece in the resiliency of the economy. So I would like to thank all of you that really took us through the presentation. It was very interesting to see how you see it, and it gives us a lot of food for thoughts here at the embassy, and we'll definitely take it upon our activities as we go forward. Thank you so much, and thank you for KDI again for organizing this. It was a great opportunity, and we look forward to watch the other series that are coming up. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Ambassador Yasmin Amri-Swed. And ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to Professor Ukson, Ambassador Yasmin Amri-Swed, and the four presenters and all participants. And this marks the end of the first Development Talks webinar on Rwanda. And thank you again for all of your enthusiastic participation. And I hope all of you had a fruitful experience from this webinar. And before you leave, please kindly note that the participation survey will be emailed to you soon. And we would appreciate it if you take the short time to complete the survey for us to provide improved webinars in the future. And I hope to see you again in our next event in May. Thank you very much.